Computer. And we're going live, preparing. Got it. Okay. Welcome to Q&A episode 4. We've been at this now a year, and I am super excited. The idea for this with the doctor and myself, fielding questions and trying to get out some answers to everyone, really launched at the Prostate Cancer Day at theK last year about this time, and I am super excited to say that we're doing Prostate Cancer Awareness Night at theK, June 14th. It's an incredible opportunity for the doctors and their families and survivors and their families and all sorts of everyone to just gather. Going to a meeting is sort of a stretch for a lot of guys, but going to a baseball game, it's a no-brainer. And I remember out there witnessing it and seeing all the things. But in fact, one of the guys that remember the story the most is he came up to me after the game had got started. He's like, "This is just fantastic." You know, we had tailgated, did a picture, and we were all sitting there watching the ball game, and Dr. Chen threw out the pitch, and he's like, "This is fantastic." He goes, "Do you do this every week?" And I was like, "No," I said, "every about 3 or 4 years." And so it's really a lot of true miracles and great support from our community that we get to do it again this year. So I'm super excited. The tickets are even cheaper. They're the same price, but we moved up to a nicer section this year. You can't even get into theK for a baseball game cheaper. The Royals are even discounting the tickets. So you get great first base seats in the shade, lower level, minimal walk and minimal steps for $23. We're giving away the t-shirts again. The idea is to kind of, build the support. So if any guy that will wear the shirt, they'll find out quickly that about 10 other guys that they already know probably have got this and they're dealing with it. And so that's the purpose of the shirts. And it's just a wonderful event. So I hope you guys can join us. So questions, they're all for you tonight. First question, which treatments allow for continued sexual function and what types of treatments prevent it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think a lot of people, come in and that's on their minds. So problem is, no matter, because of where the prostate is and where the nerves are, the blood vessels are, where the penis is, close to the prostate, any type of treatment is going to affect the sexual function, erectile function, and so whether you do radiation, whether you do surgery, cryo, HIFU, whatever, it all puts the erectile function at risk. And if you look at kind of the long-term data, after the immediate period of treatment, I think a lot of them kind of wash out, meaning like no matter what type of treatment you do, you're at risk for some erectile problems. They're all about the same degree of risk. The other part of that is the hormonal therapy. So if a patient needs hormonal therapy, and when I say that, I mean medications to reduce testosterone, so much of our erections are mental, right? And so if you don't have the testosterone, the drive, it's really, really hard for guys to get erection. Even though machinery is all fine, it's really hard to get an erection while they're on testosterone suppression. So that's part of the problem in terms of prostate cancer treatment. But one of the things I have to say is there's also a lot of ways and treatments that urologists have to help with the problem. So it could be simple, kind of, even if all the nerves get cut, no natural erection at all, you can still get an artificial erection. You can do things like direct injections in the penis. You can do a prosthesis where you put some balloons to create a artificial erection. And it seems like a lot when I say it, but people who use it, it works really well. I'm really, really satisfied with those procedures. So yes, no matter what we do, no matter what type of treatment you get, the erections are going to be affected. But there's a lot of ways to kind of work on intimacy, work on sexuality, and work, and artificial erections that people can do. I don't want to make it sound like no matter what, you're going to lose your erections, because that's not the case actually. But just that, and in fact, most of the time people keep their erections. But there's a lot of tools that people can do if people lose their erections.
Yeah, it's something that comes up. Guys don't want to talk about it, but they all need
Yeah,
to, we have it approach at meetings, and I think some of the best comments I've heard over the years was, it's not no sex, it's different,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and intimacy and sex are not kind of interchangeable. Guys have grown up thinking it's only one single thing, and
yeah,
there's so much more.
yeah,
And I'm glad to hear people are asking about it.
yeah,
So one more question, kind of down that line.
yeah.
Are radiologists and urologists educated on penile rehab?
Yeah. So penile, a lot of interest in penile rehab, a lot of interest in how can we preserve, function, do medication preserve function. Most of that work is in the oncology realm. So I'm a radiation oncologist. I'm actually not that familiar with all the data and what people do. My understanding, right, the penile rehab that people do is it's continuous use of a medication like Viagra or Cialis at high doses around the time of surgery. But really, something like that is in the domain of the urologist, and I would, just before surgery, definitely talk to the urologist about their thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's super important. Yeah, like if you're gonna have your knee repaired, you're gonna have a plan. And we
Yeah,
gotta
that's right.
we gotta have a plan for this. Okay, this is a question I I came up with it. It
Yeah,
wasn't submitted, and I had known and seen women benefit from the Angelina Jolie type treatment, where
yeah,
they lost their mother. They had tests that said, it's almost a given, right? It's you're reaching the age, you're reaching
yeah,
all the results. Is there anything down that line that's been attempted for guys? Because we get with these
yeah,
African American families where grandpa and dad have had it, and the
yeah.
son is just sitting there waiting. Is there anything that they could, think about doing before they have to wait and
Yeah.
get prostate cancer?
No, that's really important. I mean, so I'm glad you brought that up because that's so important. I think there's actually two parts to this. One is the testing. Um, so we know that about for like kind of more aggressive cancers, people with more aggressive cancers, about 10% of them will have something that's inherited. So if there's a family history, I think there's a lot of data to support getting genetic testing to know, if you carry something. Now, there's probably a lot of cancer genes we don't know about that cause prostate cancer, and so so I think the other part of what you're driving at is like prevention. Like, can we do something to prevent it? Now, there's I, I I I don't think anybody right now is thinking like a prophylactic, radiation or prophylactic, taking out the prostate. Um, there was and I think that's mostly because it's just a pretty extreme step. The cure rate, if you catch it early, is very close to 100%. So I think it's more like aggressive monitoring right now is the thought process. There was an older study that was, that people don't talk about as much anymore, but it's really interesting. It was seeing if you can prevent prostate cancer, like people with high risk, prevent prostate cancer by taking a medication, like it's called chemo prevention, right? Taking a medication to prevent the cancer. And the medication they used was finasteride, which is, it's a FDA approved medication for enlarged prostate and what to help people pee better. And what it does is it prevents your body from converting regular testosterone to more potent forms of testosterone and more potent androgens. And so in effect, it cuts your testosterone in half. And so so there was a trial comparing if you took finasteride versus not, and to see the prostate cancer afterwards. And in fact, it did drop the rate of prostate cancer quite a bit. It was like I forget exact numbers, but more than half. Um, but the reason we don't do this, right? You don't see us routinely do this. There was a very a small percentage, though, there was a small increase in the number of people who got more aggressive prostate cancers.
Ooh.
So it really reduced like the less aggressive prostate cancers, but slightly increased the more aggressive prostate cancers. There's been a lot of debate back and forth on this, like, what does it mean? Is it real? Does it, when you take the totality of it, is it better or not? And where people have kind of landed on is it's probably not worth it. So we don't do that. But people are looking into these sort of efforts to try to prevent prostate cancer as well.
That's fascinating. Aggressive monitoring. That's it. There you go.
Yeah. And I have to say, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have to say, like, if there's a strong family history, people should get their PSA screened earlier, right? So, like, I think right now the American Urologic Association, the NCCN, it's like 45. But if you got strong family history, it should be like more like 40. And that PSA isn't necessary to test like whether you have cancer or not. It's not a binary thing. It's to know what your PSA is at a certain age and see what trends happen to it over time to get a baseline early.
Yeah, my doctor, my KU doc, after I had my treatment, and I found out a year later that I had a family history. I didn't know when I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
I found out later, and I was age 46, and he said that because of what he had seen, he thought if I had been, aggressively looking for it earlier, it could have been caught even earlier.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably true. I do think that this kind of screening and looking for genes, and I think it's not just prostate cancer in family, right? I want to make people aware of that. It's like, if you have a breast cancer history in your family, maybe your family carries the breast cancer gene. Well, the breast cancer gene is actually one of the most common genes in men. Of the prostate cancer causing gene, the breast cancer gene is actually one of the more common ones. So these cancer causing genes that cause breast cancer or cause colon cancer, sometimes it'll show up as prostate cancer before one of those other cancers.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, you may have a family history, and boy, is it important to know and share. What makes a patient a good candidate for brachytherapy?
Yeah, no. So brachytherapy, it's a brachy is like close treatment, right? So it's like it's applying radiation directly to the prostate. That can be done either, typically we do is radioactive seeds, but we also do a form called HDR brachytherapy, where you put catheters into the prostate, and then it's a temporary implant instead of a permanent implant, where you put radioactive sources into the prostate, deliver high dose radiation directly to the prostate, and then everything comes out. But in terms of candidacy for brachytherapy, there are no necessarily like absolute, contraindication, absolute criteria, but there's general criteria, right? So we generally want, I lost my video. We generally want a patient to have good urinary function. Meaning, they're not like peeing every 10 minutes. They're not, there's this score that people fill out. It's called the AUA score, or IPSS score. It basically assesses how good your urination is. And we want a score of 20 or less. It's just a matter of like, if somebody's got such a big gland that they're peeing all the time, if I put a high dose radiation to the prostate, it's going to make them pee a lot more or not be able to pee at all, which is a big quality of life problem. So prostate urinary function, prostate gland size plays a role. If the gland is way too big, like some people are out there with 100 cc glands, well, I can't get to the prostate, through catheters or when the prostate is too big, because there's portions that are blocked by the bones in the pelvis. We kind of limit it to about 60 cc's, but it depends on individual. Sometimes you can go a little bit bigger than that. There are certain other things about like anesthesia, about bleeding risks. If somebody absolutely cannot, let's say you just had a heart attack and you're on Plavix, well, can't do it. You're going to bleed out if we try to do it. The we see where we're going with an ultrasound. So if somebody doesn't have had a previous rectal cancer and doesn't have a rectum, that's going to be hard. Not impossible, but really hard. I think previous those are kind of the main things: gland size, urinary function, and then just the ability to do the surgery.
That is really interesting because it comes up all the time. People are
Yeah.
always trying to figure out what to do, and they want to know, can I have brachytherapy? That ain't, that does
that's
a lot of good.
There's one other thing. So if somebody's had a TURP, like transurethral resection of prostate or roto-rooter procedure to open up the prostate because of peen problems, that leaves kind of a hole in the prostate, and so it makes the seed implant harder. But we can typically still do the HDR brachytherapy with the catheters.
The next question, I don't know what this is, so I'm super curious. So someone else submitted it.
Yeah.
What is the difference between iodine and palladium radioactive seeds?
Yeah. So iodine and palladium. So when you do brachytherapy, you implant a radioactive material into the prostate, and there's different materials that we implant. So the two of the more common ones are I-125, iodine 125, and palladium 103. They are both radioactive. They have different properties to them, right? So one of the they both, give off radiation slowly over time, and then the radioactivity goes away. They're implanted exactly the same way. The difference is in their physical properties. So iodine 125 decays with a half-life of 60 days. So that means activity drops in half every 60 days, So by about, 6 months out, you're about 12% activity. Mostly, basically, the activity is gone in about 6 months. Palladium has a half-life of 17 days, which means it goes away faster. So that's a potential advantage. I don't. But one of the downsides to me for the palladium, though, is the energy is a little bit lower. So when these things give off radiation, they have very characteristic energies that they give off. So the energy of the palladium is lower, which means it has slightly shorter range. So you tend to have to put in a little bit more palladium seeds, and the spacing is not as the implant is not as forgiving. It's a little bit harder implant with the palladium. I think so basically the advantage of the palladium seeds is shorter half-life. It gets done. The activity gives off sooner. To me, the disadvantage is palladium. It's a little bit harder implant. It takes somewhat more seeds, and so it means more needle pokes into the prostate, potentially cause a little bit more trauma in the beginning. But in reality, though, I think most practitioners are going to be more comfortable with one. They're just used to the properties of one seed or another seed, and I think either one is really great.
Thank you. All right, last question. For guys on the other side here, is weight training a solution to muscle loss from hormone therapy?
Yeah, that's a really easy answer. I think everybody who I've put on hormone therapy, who I tell them that they to the extent that they can, should try to work out and gain some, and I think it's not just, weight training is important, right? It's not just building muscle; it's also strengthening your bones, right? Because you lose a little bit of calcium from your bones. That leaches away faster. So both of those are good. I would also recommend some aerobics because you're deconditioning, the metabolism slower, so you want to do some aerobic exercise to keep up your metabolism. But for sure, you definitely, yes, I think people should do weight training to prevent muscle loss.
Yeah, and prostate cancer is depressing, and the best thing you can do for depression is to recognize it and work out and eat healthy. And
no, absolutely.
We've been preaching it for years. I'm a disciple. I did not take the good book before I got prostate cancer, before I have since, and I sure do hope that
Yeah.
everybody do it ahead of time if you can, if you're listening out there, and if not afterwards, definitely double down.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I
Thank you, Steve.
look forward to seeing everyone out at the K.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Look, see you guys at the K. Bye-bye.